the sound of justice. The sharp crack of breaking glass pierced the stillness of a Chicago night, reverberating through the empty streets like a gunshot. The city, usually humming with life, seemed to hold its breath. This wasn't just another crime in the urban sprawl. It was the spark of a reckoning, a fire that had been smoldering for decades, ready to ignite. At the heart of it stood Evelyn Carter, a woman who had risen from the gritty corners of the South Side to become Illinois' Deputy Attorney General. Now, she faced a system she'd sworn to uphold, one rotten to its core, snarling to destroy her. Evelyn sat in the dim basement of a weathered community center, the air thick with the scent of old wood and damp concrete. Candlelight flickered, casting jagged shadows on the cracked walls. This was a place for secrets, a sanctuary where the city's forgotten came to share their pain. Tonight, the silence was heavier, the grief sharper. Evelyn, dressed in a plain sweater and slacks, blended into the room, her face unreadable. To the others, she was just another listener, not the state's youngest deputy AG, a woman with the power to shift the tides of justice. She wasn't here to wield that power, not yet. She was here to hear the truth. The room filled with voices, raw and unfiltered. A mother, hands trembling, spoke of her son, gunned down by police in a routine stop. The officer's body camera had malfunctioned, and her fight for justice ended in a dismissed case, her son's name erased. A man, his voice thick with rage, recounted his brother's death in a midnight arrest, labeled as resisting to cover the truth. A woman whispered of her daughter, shot during a traffic stop, her body left on the pavement for hours, her pleas for accountability ignored. Evelyn's fists clenched. She'd heard these stories before, but tonight they hit differently. The system she'd dedicated her life to had failed these people. The laws she'd enforced, the policies she'd shaped, they hadn't stopped the violence. They'd enabled it. A young man stood, his voice steady but heavy, describing his father's death in a cell, ruled a suicide. Evelyn's mind raced. This wasn't about rogue cops or isolated incidents. This was systemic, a machine designed to protect the guilty and silence the innocent. A woman touched Evelyn's arm, her eyes desperate but resolute. "We need someone to fight for us," she said. "Someone who can make them listen." The words landed like a weight on Evelyn's chest. She'd always believed the system could be fixed from within. Now, surrounded by broken lives, she faced a brutal truth. To fight for justice, she'd have to fight the system itself. The rain fell in sheets as Evelyn drove her old sedan through Chicago's wet streets, the city skyline a blur of light and shadow. Her mind churned with the stories from the meeting, each one a wound that refused to heal. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat, but she ignored it, needing the silence to think. Then, red and blue lights flashed in her rearview mirror. Her stomach tightened, not with fear but with weary frustration. Another stop. Another officer is assuming the worst. She pulled over under a flickering street lamp, hands on the wheel, movements practiced. The officer, a burly man named Sullivan, stepped out, his smirk visible even in the dim light. "Step out of the car," he barked, not explaining. Evelyn complied, her face calm but her mind alert. She knew this game: comply, endure, survive. Sullivan's flashlight swept over her, his pat-down rough and deliberate. "What's a woman like you doing in this neighborhood?" he sneered, his tone dripping with condescension. "My car fits the description of one involved in a bar fight," Sullivan said, his eyes narrowing. "Have you been to Murphy's Pub?" Evelyn's voice was steady. "No, officer. I was at a meeting. I'm headed to my hotel." Sullivan scoffed, turning to his younger partner, Officer Reed, who stood nervously by the patrol car. "A meeting? Huh? In this part of town?" "Sure." Sullivan rummaged through her car, tossing papers from the glove compartment. Then his eyes locked on a blue folder on the passenger seat, notes from her investigation into police misconduct. "What's this?" he mocked, flipping through it. "Looks important." Evelyn's pulse quickened, but she kept her composure. "Work documents," she said. He dropped the folder into a puddle, smirking. Then, in a swift motion, he slipped a small bag of white powder into the car's console, thinking she hadn't seen. But Evelyn saw everything. Her heart raced, but her face remained neutral. This wasn't a stop, it was a setup. Sullivan thought he'd won, but Evelyn's steady gaze met his, and for the first time, he faltered. The real fight was just beginning. The interrogation room at the precinct smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Evelyn sat, her posture calm but her mind racing. She'd been here before, on the other side, defending the system. Now, she was its target. Sullivan, confident in his trap, was likely crafting his story, while Reed, the young officer, had barely spoken, his eyes darting with guilt. The door opened, and Lieutenant Baxter, a stern man in a crisp suit, entered. "Miss Carter," he began, "your car was involved in a disturbance, and we found drugs. Care to explain?" Evelyn met his gaze. "You don't have my side of the story, Lieutenant. You have planted evidence. Sullivan's desperate to frame me, and you're wasting your time." Baxter's eyes flickered with irritation, but before he could respond, Reed burst in, pale and trembling. "Lieutenant, there's been a mistake. I checked Sullivan's body cam footage. He planted the drugs. I saw it." The room fell silent, the weight of Reed's words hanging heavy. Baxter's jaw tightened. "You're sure?" Reed nodded. "I saw the whole thing." Baxter dismissed Reed and turned to Evelyn, his tone softer. "Sullivan's been a problem for years. I'll make sure this comes out, but it's bigger than him. You know that." Evelyn nodded. "This doesn't end with Sullivan. He's a symptom, not the disease. If you want justice, dig deeper." Released but not safe, Evelyn moved to a safe house on the city's edge, the rain now a drizzle. The media had begun to turn, fake headlines painting her as a corrupt official. Deputy AG linked to scandal. Investigation expands. Her phone buzzed with a message from Captain Daniel Hayes, a precinct veteran she'd met months earlier. "Meet me at the diner. It's getting worse." At the diner, Hayes looked haggard. "The AG's office is pushing for your resignation," he said. "They're using you to bury the truth." Evelyn's resolve hardened. "We fight fire with fire. We expose the council members feeding these lies. Turn the media against them." Hayes hesitated. "If we go public, we're in the crosshairs." Evelyn leaned in. "I've been in their sights my whole life. I'm not backing down." Their plan took shape. Gather irrefutable evidence, find witnesses, and go public. But danger followed. A black sedan trailed Evelyn through the city, its presence a constant threat. At a parking garage, Reed appeared, guilt-ridden. "I didn't want this," he stammered. "They ordered me to stay quiet." Before Evelyn could press him, footsteps echoed others were coming. She fled, knowing survival meant staying one step ahead. The diner was empty when Evelyn arrived for their next meeting, the door ajar. Her heart sank as she found Hayes slumped in the back room, blood pooling beneath him. A message buzzed on her phone. "Stay out of it. This ends tonight." Grief and rage surged, but Evelyn steeled herself. Hayes' death was a warning, but it only fueled her fire. A contact delivered a file names, dates, proof of a vast corrupt network. Evelyn worked with a journalist, Sarah Mitchell, to release it. The story broke, sparking protests and media frenzy. But the system fought back, spreading lies to discredit her. At a public hearing, Evelyn stood before a crowd, her voice unwavering. "We're here to restore justice, to give the silenced a voice." Witnesses shared their stories, each one a crack in the system's facade. The jury's verdict came, guilty on all charges. Corrupt officials were sentenced, some to life, others stripped of power. Evelyn led reforms, and a historic vote passed, restructuring the system to serve the people, not the powerful. Standing at her office window, Evelyn looked out at a transformed Chicago. The city buzzed with fragile hope, its streets no longer cloaked in fear. The fight had been brutal, but the truth had prevailed. The system was being rebuilt, brick by brick, to ensure no one suffered in silence again. Evelyn wasn't alone. Her colleague, Mark, entered. "The reforms are holding. We did it." Evelyn nodded, her heart full. "We're not done. This is just the start." She'd lost many friends, safety, and trust in the system, but she'd gained purpose. The truth was free, and she'd fight to keep it that way. What do you think? Evelyn's story is one of courage against a broken system, but it raises tough questions about violence and injustice in our world. Have you faced or witnessed systemic unfairness? Do you believe one person can change a corrupt system, or does it take a collective? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters. Let's discuss how we can stand against injustice together.